Kanvitamscha. He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Deenabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Eva Cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shrivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So the Guru Pranam meaning. I offer my respectful obeisances unto my spiritual master, who has opened my eyes, which were blinded by the darkness of ignorance, with the torchlight of knowledge. When will Sri Rupa Goswami Prabhupada, who has established within this material world the mission to fulfill the desire of Lord Chaitanya, give me shelter under his lotus feet? I offer my respectful obeisances unto the lotus feet of my spiritual master and of all the other preceptors on the path of devotional service. I offer my respectful obeisances unto all the Vaishnavas and unto the 6 Goswamis, including Sri Rupa Goswami, Sri Sanatan Goswami, Raghunath Das Goswami, Jiva Goswami, and their associates. I offer my respectful obeisances unto Advaita Acharya Prabhu, Sri Nityananda Prabhu, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and all his devotees headed by Srivas Thakur. I then offer my respectful obeisances unto the lotus feet of Lord Krishna, Srimati Radharani, and all the gopis headed by Lalita and Vishakha. O my dear Krishna, ocean of mercy, you are the friend of the distressed and the source of creation. You are the master of the cowherd men and the lover of the gopis, especially Srimati Radharani. I offer my respectful obeisances unto you. I offer my respects to Srimati Radharani, whose bodily complexion is like molten gold and who is the queen of Vrindavan. You are the daughter of King Vrishabhanu and you are very dear to Lord Krishna. I offer my respectful obeisances unto all the Vaishnava devotees of the Lord. They are just like desire trees who can fulfill the desires of everyone, and they are full of compassion for the fallen conditioned souls. So today, I welcome you all. We are continuing our series for reading about Narasimha Lila, especially from Prahlad Maharaj, the chapter on Prahlad Maharaj's instructions to his classmates. And today is the second day, and we are doing this as an offering to our lordships, Shri Shri Radha Madan Mohan, Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Shri Lakshmi Narasimha Dev, on the appearance of the Narasimha Chaturdasi, that's an appearance of Lord Narasimha Dev, that's tomorrow. And we are doing this as an offering for our monthly Sankirtan festival. So I take the permission of all the assembled Vaishnavas and humbly beg for their mercy so that I can engage myself and my son Nitai in this auspicious reading that is today from 7 to 8. So Mataji, if we can open the Veda base. I think Srivas Prabhu had stopped at the 7th canto, 6th chapter and 19th verse.
Let's start from 19th verse. Mataji.
Yes. Okay. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Mudirayet Shinvatam Swakatha Krishna Punya Shravana Kirtanaha Hridantastoi Bhadrani Vidunoti Suhritsatam Nashtaprayeshu Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naistiki Mukham karoti vachalam pangum langayate girim yat kripatamaham mande Shri Gurun Dinataranam. So, just want to give a brief overview. This chapter began with Prahlad Maharaj instructing his friends on pure devotional service and why it is important for everyone actually to make the most of their life, which is actually very limited. We have very limited time. So that is the context with which this Prahlad Maharaj's instructions and conversations going on. Text 19. Nahi achyutam prinayato bahva ayaso suratmajaha atmavad sarva bhutanam siddhatvad iha sarvataha. Translations. My dear sons of demons, the Supreme Personality of Godhead Narayan is the original Supersoul, the father of all living entities. Consequently, there are no impediments to pleasing him or worshipping him under any conditions, whether one be a child or an old man. The relationship between the living entities and the Supreme Personality of Godhead is always a fact, and therefore there is no difficulty in pleasing the Lord. Purport by Srila Prabhupada, Jai Srila Prabhupada. One may ask, one is certainly very attached to family life, but if one gives up family life to be attached to the service of the Lord, one must undergo the same endeavor and trouble. Therefore, what is the benefit of taking the trouble to engage in the service of the Lord? This is not a valid objection. The Lord asserts in Bhagavad Gita 14.4, Sarvayonishu kaunteya murtyaha sambhavantiyaha tasam brahma mahadyonir aham bija pradapita. It should be understood that all species of life, O son of Kunti, are made possible by birth in this material nature, and that I am the seed-giving father. The Supreme Lord Narayan is the seed-giving father of all living entities because the living entities are parts and parcels of the Supreme Lord. Mamaivamso jiva bhutaha. So as there is no difficulty in establishing the ultimate intimate relationship between a father and son, there is no difficulty in re-establishing the natural intimate relationship between Narayan and the living entities. Swalpam apyasya dharmasya trayate mahato bhayat. If one performs even very slight devotional service, Narayan is always ready to save one from the greatest danger. The definite example is Ajamal. Ajamal separated himself from the Supreme Personality of Godhead by performing many sinful activities and was condemned by Yamaraj to be very severely punished. But because at the time of death, he chanted the name of Narayan, although he was calling out for the Supreme Lord Narayan, but for not calling out for the Supreme Lord Narayan, but for his son named Narayan, he was saved from the hands of Yamaraj. Therefore, pleasing Narayan does not require as much endeavor as pleasing one's family, community, and nation. We have seen important political leaders killed for a slight discrepancy in their behavior. Therefore, pleasing one's society, family, community, and nation is extremely difficult. Pleasing Narayan, however, is not at all difficult. It is very easy. One's duty is to revive one's relationship with Narayan. A slight endeavor in this direction will make the attempt successful, whereas one will never be successful in pleasing his so-called family, society, and nation, even if one endeavors to sacrifice his life. The simple endeavor involved in the devotional service of Shravanam Kirtanam Vishnu, hearing and chanting the holy name of the Lord, can make one successful in pleasing the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has therefore bestowed his blessings by saying, Param Vijayate Sri Krishna Sankirtanam. All glories to Sri Krishna Sankirtan. If one wants to derive the actual benefit from this human form, he must take to chanting of the holy name of the Lord. Text 20 to 23. Paravareshu bhuteshu brahmanta stavaradishu bhautikeshu vikareshu bhuteshva atha mahatsucha Guneshu guna samye cha guna vyati kare tatha ekas eva paruhyatma bhagavanishvaro vyavyaha pratyag atma swarupena drishyarupena cha swayam vyapya vyapaka nirdeshyo hiyanirdeshyo vikalpitaha kevalanubhavananda swarupa parameshwaraha mayayantar hitartaisvarya iyate gunasvar sargaya. Translation: the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the Supreme Controller, who is infallible and indefatigable, is present in different forms of life, from the inert living beings, Thavara, such as the plants, to Brahma, the foremost created living being. He is also present in the varieties of material creations and in material elements, the total material energy, and the modes of material nature, Sattva Guna, Rajoguna, and Tamoguna, as well as the unmanifested material nature and the false ego. Although he is one, he is present everywhere, and he is also the transcendental supersoul, the cause of all causes, who is present as the observer in the cores of the hearts of all living entities. He is indicated as that which is pervaded and as all pervading supersoul, but actually he cannot be indicated. He is changeless and undivided. He is simply perceived as a supreme Sachidananda, eternity, knowledge, and bliss. Being covered by the curtain of the external energy, to the atheist, he appears non existent. Purport. Not only is the Supreme Personality of Godhead present as the supersoul of all living entities, at the same time, he pervades everything in the entire creation. He exists in all circumstances and at all times. He exists in the heart of Lord Brahma, and also in the cores of the hearts of the hogs, dogs, trees, plants, and so on. He is present everywhere. He is present not only in the heart of the living entity, but also in material things. Even in the atoms, protons, and electrons being explored by material scientists. The Lord is present in three features as Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan. Because he is present everywhere, he is described as Sarvam Khalav Idam Brahma. Vishnu exists beyond Brahman. Bhagavad Gita confirms that Krishna, by his Brahman feature, is all pervading. Maya tatam idam sarvam. But Brahman depends upon Krishna. Brahmano hi pratisthaham. Without Krishna, there could be no existence of Brahma or Paramatma. Therefore, Bhagavan, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is the ultimate realization of the Absolute Truth. Although he is present as the Paramatma in the core of everyone's heart, he is nonetheless one, either as individual or as the all-pervading Brahman. The supreme cause of Krishna and devotees who have surrendered to the Supreme Personality of Godhead can realize him and his presence within the universe and within the atom. Andantarastha paramasu chayantarastham. This realization is possible only for devotees who have fully surrendered unto the lotus feet of the Lord. For others, it is not possible. This is confirmed by the Lord himself in the Bhagavad Gita 7.14. Daiviyesha gunamai mama maya duratyaya mameva ye prapadyante maya metam taranti te. The process of surrender in the devotional attitude is accepted by a fortunate living being. After wandering through many varieties of life on many planetary systems, when one comes to the real understanding of the Absolute Truth by the grace of a devotee, one surrenders to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, as confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita. Bahunam janmanamante jnanavam mam prapadyate. Prahlad Maharaj's friends, who were born of Daitya families, thought that realizing the Absolute was extremely difficult. Indeed, we have experienced that many people say this very thing. Actually, however, this is not so. The Absolute Supreme Personality of Godhead is most intimately related to all living entities. Therefore, if one understands the Vaishnava philosophy, which explains how he is present everywhere and how he acts everywhere, to worship the Supreme Lord or to realize him is not at all difficult. Realization of the Lord, however, is possible only in the association of devotees. Therefore, Sri Krishna Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, in his teachings to Rupa Goswami, said in Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya Lila, chapter 19, verse 151, Brahmanda Brahmite Kona Bhagyavan Jeev, Guru Krishna Prasade Pai, Bhakti Lata Bij. The living entity in the material condition wanders through many varieties of life and many varieties of circumstances. But if he comes in contact with a pure devotee and is intelligent enough to take instructions from the pure devotee regarding the process of devotional service, he can understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the origin of Brahman and Paramatma, without difficulty. In this regard, Srila Madhvacharya says, Antaryami pratyag atma vyapta kalo hari smritaha prakritiya tamasvar tatvat harer aishwaryam na gyayate. The Lord is present as Antaryami in everyone's heart and is visible in the individual soul covered by a body. Indeed, he is everywhere at every time and at every condition, but because he is covered by the curtain of material energy, to an ordinary person there appears to be no God. Text 24. Tasmat sarveshu bhuteshu dayam kurta sauhridam bhavam asuram unmuchya yaya tushyati adhokshajaha. Translation. Therefore, my dear young friends born of demons, please act in such a way that the Supreme Lord, who is beyond the conception of material knowledge, will be satisfied. Give up your demoniac nature and act without enmity or duality. Show mercy to all living entities by enlightening them in devotional service, thus becoming their well-wishers. Purport. The Lord says in the Bhagavad Gita, 1855, Bhaktya mam abhijanati yavan yaschashmi tattvataha. One can understand the Supreme Personality as he is only by devotional service. Prahlad Maharaj ultimately instructed his class friends, the sons of the demons, to accept the process of devotional service and by preaching the science of Krishna consciousness to everyone. Preaching is the best service to the Lord. The Lord will immediately be extremely satisfied with one who engages in a service of preaching Krishna consciousness. This is confirmed by the Lord himself in Bhagavad Gita 18.69. Nacha tasman manushyeshu kaschin me priya krittamaha. There is no servant in this world more dear to me than he, nor will there ever be one more dear. If one sincerely tries his best to spread Krishna consciousness by preaching the glories of the Lord and his supremacy, even if he is imperfectly educated, he becomes the dearmost servant of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This is bhakti. As one performs a service for humanity without discrimination between friends and enemies, the Lord becomes satisfied, and the mission of one's life is fulfilled. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu therefore advised everyone to become a Guru devotee and preach Krishna consciousness. Yara dekhe tara kahe Krishna upadesh. That is the easiest way to realize the Supreme Personality of Godhead. By such preaching, the preacher becomes satisfied, and those to whom he preaches are also satisfied. This is the process of bringing peace and tranquility to the entire world. Bhoktaram yagyatapasam sarva loka maheshwaram suhridam sarva bhutanam nyatma mam shantim richati. One is expected to understand these three formulas of knowledge concerning the Supreme Lord, that he is the supreme enjoyer, that he is the proprietor of everything, and that he is the best well-wisher and friend of everyone. A preacher should personally understand these truths and preach them to everyone. Then there will be peace and tranquility all over the world. The word sauhridam, friendliness, is very significant in this verse. People are generally ignorant of Krishna consciousness, and therefore, to become their best well-wisher, one should teach them about Krishna consciousness without discrimination. Since the Supreme Lord Vishnu is situated in the core of everyone's heart, everybody is a temple of Vishnu. One should not misuse this understanding as an excuse for such words as Daridra Narayan. If Narayan lives in the house of a Daridra, a poor man, this does not mean that Narayan becomes poor. He lives everywhere, in the houses of the poor and those of the rich, but in all circumstances he remains Narayan. To think that he becomes either poor or rich is a material calculation. He is always Sadaishwarya Purna, full in 6 opulences in all circumstances. I'll hand it over now to Nitai to read a few verses.
तुष्टे च तत्र किमलभ्यमनन्त आध्ये किं तैर्गुणव्यतिकरादिहये स्वसिद्धा धर्मादय किमगुणेन च काङ्क्षितेन सारं जुषं चरणयोरुपगायतं न. Nothing is obtainable for devotees who have satisfied the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Nothing is unobtainable for devotees who have satisfied the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is the cause of all causes, the original source of everything. The Lord is the reservoir of unlimited spiritual qualities. For devotees, therefore, who are transcendental to the modes of material nature, what is the use of following the principles of religion, economic development, sense gratification, and liberation, which are all automatically obtainable under the influence of the modes of nature? We devotees always glorify the lotus feet of the Lord, and therefore we need not ask anything in terms of dharma, kama, artha, and moksha. Purport. In an advanced civilization, people are eager to be religious, to be economically well situated, to satisfy their senses to the fullest extent, and to at last attain liberation. However, these are not to be magnified as desirable. Indeed, for a devotee, these are all very easily available. Bilva Mangala Thakur said, Mukti Swayam Mukulitanjali Sevate Sman Dharmartha Kama Gataya Samaya Pratiksha. Liberation always stands at the door of a devotee, ready to carry out his orders. Material advancement in religion, economic development, and sense gratification and liberation simply wait to serve a devotee at the first opportunity. A devotee is already in a transcendental position. He does not need further qualifications to be liberated. As confirmed in Bhagavad Gita 14.26, Sagunan Samatityetan Brahma Bhuyaya Kalpate. A devotee is transcendental to the actions and reactions of the 3 modes of material nature because he is situated on the Brahman platform. Prahlad Maharaj said, Agunena chakankshitena. If one is engaged in the transcendental loving service of the lotus feet of the Lord, he does not need anything in terms of dharma, artha, kama, or moksha. In Srimad Bhagavatam, therefore, in the beginning of the transcendental literature, it is said, Dharma projita kaita votra dharma tra. Dharma, artha, kama, and moksha are kaitava, false and unnecessary. Nirmat saranam, persons who are completely transcendental to the material activities of separateness, who make no distinction between mine and yours, but who simply engage in the devotional service of the Lord, are actually fit to accept Bhagavat Dharma, Dharman Bhagavatan Iha, because they are nirmatsara, not jealous of anyone. They want to make others devotees, even their enemies. In this regard, Srila Madhavacharya remarks, Kankshate moksha gam api sukham na kankshata yatha. Devotees are not desirous of any material happiness, including the happiness derived from liberation. This is called Anya Bilashita Shunyam Jnana Karmadhyanavritam. Karmis desire material happiness and Jnanis desire liberation, but a devotee does not desire anything. He is simply satisfied by rendering transcendental loving service at the lotus feet of the Lord and glorifying Him everywhere by preaching, which is his life and soul. Text 26. Dharmartha kama iti yobihita strivarga ikshatrainayadamo vividha cha varta manye tadetadakhilam nigamasya satyam svatmarpanam swasuradak paramasya pumsa. Religion, economic development, and sense gratification. These are described in the Vedas as trivarga, or 3 ways to salvation. Within these 3 categories are education and self-realization, ritualistic ceremonies performed according to Vedic injunction, logic, the science of law and order, and the various means of earning one's livelihood. These are the external subject matters of study in the Vedas, and therefore I consider them material. However, I consider surrender to the lotus feet of Lord Vishnu to be transcendental. Purport. These instructions of Prahlad Maharaj stress the transcendental position of devotional service, as confirmed in Bhagavad Gita 14.26. Vamchayo vyabhicharena bhakti yogena sevate sagunan samati ketan brahma bhuyaya kalpate. One who engages in full devotional service, who does not fall down in any circumstance, at once transcends the modes of material nature and thus comes to the level of Brahman. One who fully engages in the devotional service of the Lord is immediately raised to the transcendental position, which is the Brahma Bhuta stage. At any education or activity not on the Brahma Bhuta platform, the platform of self-realization, is considered to be material. And Prahlad Maharaj says that anything material cannot be the absolute truth, for the absolute truth is on the spiritual platform. This is also confirmed by Lord Krishna in Bhagavad Gita 2.45, where he says, Traigunya Vishaya Veda Nistraigunya Bhavarjuna. The Vedas mainly deal with the subject of the three modes of material nature. Rise above these modes, O Arjuna. Be transcendental to all of them. To act on the material platform, even if one's activities are sanctioned by the Vedas, is not the ultimate goal of life. The ultimate goal of life is to stay on the spiritual platform, fully surrendered to the Parama Purusha, the Supreme Person. This is the object of the human mission. In summary, the Vedic ritualistic ceremonies and injunctions are not to be discounted. They are means of being promoted to the spiritual platform. But if one does not come to the spiritual platform, the Vedic ceremonies are simply a waste of time. This is confirmed in Srimad Bhagavatam 1.2.8. Dharmasvanushtita pumsam vishvaksena katha soyaha notpadayedhyadiratim shrama eva hi kevalam. Duties, dharma, executed by men, regardless of occupation, are only so much useless labor if they do not provoke attraction for the message of the Supreme Lord. If one very strictly performs the various duties of religion but does not ultimately come to the platform of surrendering to the Supreme Lord, his methods of attaining salvation or elevation are simply a waste of time and energy. Text 27. Jnanam tadetadamalam duravapamaha narayano narasakha kila naradaya ekantinam bhagavatasthadakinchananam padaravindarajasa plutadehinam syat. Narayan, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the well-wisher and friend of all living entities, formally explained this transcendental knowledge to the great saint Narada. Such knowledge is extremely difficult to understand without the mercy of a saintly person like Narada. But everyone who has taken shelter of Narada's disciplic succession can understand this confidential knowledge. Purport. It is stated here that this confidential knowledge is extremely difficult to understand, yet it is very easy to understand if one takes shelter of a pure devotee. This confidential knowledge is also mentioned at the end of Bhagavad Gita, where the Lord says, Sarvadharman parityaja mamikam sharanam braja. Abandon all varieties of religion and just surrender unto me. This knowledge is an extremely confidential secret, but it can be understood if one approaches the Supreme Personality of Godhead through the bona fide agent, the spiritual master, in the disciplic succession from Narada. Prahlad Maharaj wanted to impress upon the sons of the demons that although such knowledge can be understood only by a saintly person like Narada, they should not be disappointed. For if one takes shelter of Narada instead of material teachers, this knowledge is possible to understand. Understanding does not depend upon high parentage. The living entity is certainly pure on the spiritual platform, and therefore anyone who attains the spiritual platform by the grace of the spiritual master can also understand this confidential knowledge. Text 28. Shritam metan maya purvam jnanam vijnana samyutam dharmam bhagavatam shuddham narada deva darshanat. Prahlad Maharaj continued, I received this knowledge from the great Saint Narad Muni. He was always engaged in devotional service. This knowledge, which is called Bhagavat Dharma, is fully scientific. It is based on logic and philosophy and is free from all material contamination. Text 29 to 30. Sri Daityaputra Uchuhu Prahradatvam vayam chapi nartenyam vidamahe gurum etabhyam guruputrabhyam balanam api ishvarau Valasyantapurasthasya mahatsangoduranvayaha chindina samshayam somya syached visrambakaranam. The sons of the demons replied, "Dear Prahlad, neither you nor we know any teacher or spiritual master other than Sanda and Amarka, the sons of Shukracharya. After all, we are children, and they are our controllers. For you especially, who always remain within the palace, it is very difficult to associate with the great personality. Dear friend, most gentle one, would you kindly explain how it was possible to hear Narada? Kindly dispel our doubts in this regard." Thus end the Bhaktivedanta purports to the 7th canto, 6th chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam, entitled Prahlad Instructs His Demoniac Schoolmates.
So we'll just take a brief pause here and see if there are any comments or questions or realizations. I really like this chapter where, the way Prahlad Maharaj, he builds and he explains how, in step by step, that basically there are three things that we have to understand always, that the Supreme Lord is the enjoyer, and he is the supreme and we are meant to serve him. And then from that position, everybody needs to start understanding, okay, what is my role in this life, in the material world. And if we begin with that understanding that I am not the enjoyer, it's the Supreme Lord who's the enjoyer, then everything automatically starts to make sense, that why I'm always in distress, because I'm trying to be the enjoyer, and that is not my natural position. So when I'm trying to be something which I'm not, there is always going to be a zone of discomfort. And the minute I accept and surrender to my position, then automatically, things start to fall in place. I start to understand that I need to be a servant. And especially if we can find a pure devotee, in this case, he's talking about how he found Narad Muni, and by hearing and serving a pure devotee, all the knowledge about the supreme absolute truth is transmitted through the via medium of that devotee, and it is transferred into the heart of the living entity. And then by the practice of pure devotional service, automatically one starts to understand deeper realities of their existence, and why this material world is such a place where it is very baffling all the time, why things happen the way they happen, and in the end, what is the goal of this life. So I really liked how Prahlad Maharaj brings that out. And yes, Kautukarnava Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Mataji, I really like the reading. I really like that point that to realize absolute truth is not difficult. Although it seems that it is very difficult, it's a general understanding, but it is not so difficult if we approach a bona fide spiritual master and we follow him. Brahman Brahmite Kaun Bhagyavan Jeev Guru Krishna Kripa Pai Bhakti Lata Bij. So it is simultaneously difficult and easy. Difficult in the sense to find a spiritual master, but easy in the sense that we can accept and follow. So I really like that. Thank you.
Thank you, Prabhu. Wonderful. Yes, Malini.
Hi, Krishna. Thank you so much for the nice reading. And also, I really like how Nitai recited the shlokas so nicely in Sanskrit. Very, very happy to hear that. The point I liked was how Prahlad Maharaj was mentioning that the mercy of the Supreme Lord could be obtained by the mercy of Narada. Narada Muni. And then he said that, so it doesn't have to be only Narada Muni, but anyone who is representing Narada Muni, we all get the same benefit. And Prabhupada also clarifies in the purport that if we follow the very sincerely, whoever is there in Narada Muni's reciproc succession, then we get the same benefit as what Prahlad Maharaj received from Narada Muni directly. So that was very, very encouraging. And I also like the point where Prahlad Maharaj is emphasizing on preaching. He said that we have to preach, and that is the best way to utilize this human form of life. And Prabhupada also quotes the verse that from Bhagavad Gita, one who is very dear, the one who preaches this message to others is very dear to him. So yeah, thank you so much for that.
Thank you. Amazing. Yeah. I love that too. The part where Narad Muni's role is so important in our lives. And actually every canto of Bhagavatam has Sri Narada's instruction. We get his association in every canto of Bhagavatam. So we are very grateful for that.
And I also had the same reflection as Kautuk Karna Prabhu had. I used to think that like pleasing in the material world is easy, but Prabhupada mentions that devotional service is not difficult. Pleasing Krishna in devotional service is much easier than pleasing any of this in this material world, because there's always disappointment. So that is so encouraging.
Yes.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Gandharvika Radha Mataji.
Dandavat Rasesvari. Thank you so much. I really loved Nitai's recitation of verses on the spot. It was so nice. I think everybody liked the.
You got muted.
Sorry. Yeah. Sorry about that. One can get the spiritual knowledge by the mercy of spiritual personalities like Narada. So that was the main point, because in this age, the education is not dependent on the mercy of the professor or anything, right? But there is a paradigm shift when we come to get knowledge in spiritual life. So it's totally different. You have to respect and serve and then get the knowledge. Not like you give money or you just read something and get your degree. So I was thinking about that. And also another point was about how this whole system of Bhagavatam is for people who are not jealous. And that's a very important point. And even in the 12th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, in the end, Krishna says like how he loves someone who has equanimity in his heart. And it's very, very difficult to obtain this quality. But Krishna stresses it so much. Unless we give up jealousy, we cannot get equanimity. And then we won't get this real knowledge of Bhagavatam. And only then, like as Prabhupada says in Madhvacharya, that then devotees want to make other devotees, even if they are their enemies. So that's a very exalted quality. And I hope we can try our best to pray and emulate, at least in our capacity. So we can be, first of all, our mind gets pacified by being in that state of consciousness. So that's another point that I wanted to share. Thank you.
Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah, I love that point where he says that Prabhupada says that it's not about parentage, because the classmates of Prahlad Maharaj must be thinking that, we are the sons of demons. What is our chance to, practice pure devotional life? We are always associated with modes of passion and ignorance. But he gives them so much hope, and he gives them the process, and that's his. Also, he is actually the representation of the compassion, ultimate compassion to all living entities. And by his compassion, actually, Prahlad's realizations are transmitted to this canto, and it gets deeper and deeper. And with that, I think it's time we can go into the next chapter for some more verses. We have some more time. Is that all right? Yeah. I couldn't hear you, Dhamika.
Yes, Rasesvari, please.
Okay. All right. Let's go on to the next chapter. We'll have Nitai read for some time, and then I'll continue.
Chapter 7. What Prahlad learned in the womb. In this chapter, to dissipate the doubts of his class friends, the sons of the demons, Prahlad Maharaj states how, within the womb of his mother, he had heard from the mouth of Narada Muni, who had instructed him in Bhagavata Dharma. When Hiranyakashipu left his kingdom and went to the mountain known as Mandarachala to execute severe austerities, all the demons scattered. Hiranyakashipu's wife, Kayadu, was pregnant at that time, and the demigods, mistakenly thinking that she carried another demon in her womb, arrested her. Their plan was that as soon as the child took birth, they would kill him. While they were taking Kayadu to the heavenly planets, they met Narada Muni. He stopped them from taking her away and took her to his ashram until Hiranyakashipu's return. In Narada Muni's ashram, Kayadu prayed for the protection of the baby in her womb, and Narada Muni reassured her and gave her instructions on spiritual knowledge. Taking advantage of those instructions, Prahlad Maharaj, although a small baby within the womb, listened very carefully. The spirit soul is always apart from the material body. There is no change in the spiritual form of the living entity. Any person above the bodily conception of life is pure and can receive transcendental knowledge. This transcendental knowledge is devotional service, and Prahlad Maharaj, while living in the womb of his mother, received instructions in devotional service from Narada Muni. Any person engaged in the service of the Lord through the instructions of the bona fide spiritual master is immediately liberated, and being free from the clutches of Maya, he is relieved of all ignorance and material desires. The duty of everyone is to take shelter of the Supreme Lord and thus become free from all material desires. Regardless of the material condition in which one is situated, one can achieve this perfection. Devotional service is not dependent on the material activities of austerity, penance, mystic yoga, or piety. Even without such assets, one can achieve devotional service through the mercy of a pure devotee.
So I'll continue. Text 1. Sri Narada Vacha Evam Daitya Sutah Prishto Mahabhagavato Suraha Uvacha Tan Smayamanaha Smaranmad Anubhashitam. Translation. Narada Muni said, although Prahlad Maharaj was born in a family of asuras, he was the greatest of all devotees. Having thus been questioned by his class friends, the sons of the asuras, he remembered the words spoken to him by me and replied to his friends as follows. Purport. When he was in the womb of his mother, Prahlad Maharaj listened to the words of Narada Muni. One cannot imagine how the baby in embryo could hear Narada, but this is spiritual life. Progress in spiritual life cannot be obstructed by any material condition. This is called ahituki apratihata. Reception of spiritual knowledge is never checked by any material condition. Thus far, Prahlad Maharaj, from his very childhood, spoke spiritual knowledge to his class friends, and certainly it was effective, although all of them were children. Text 2. Shri Prahlada Uvacha Pitari Prasthite Smakam Tapase Mandarachalam Yuddho Dhyamam Param Chakrur Vibhudha Danavan Prati. Translation. Prahlad Maharaj said, when our father Hiranyakashipu went to Mandarachala mountain to execute severe austerities, in his absence, the demigods headed by King Indra made a severe attempt to subdue all the demons in warfare. Pipilikair ahir viva dishtya loko patatpanaha papena papo bhaksiti vadanto vasavadayaha. Alas, as a serpent is eaten by small ants, so the troublesome Hiranyakashipu, who always inflicted miseries upon all types of people, has now been defeated by the reactions of his own sinful activities. Saying this, the demigods, headed by King Indra, arranged to fight the demons. Tesham ati balod yogam nisham yasura yutapaha vadhyamana surair dudruvu sarvato disham kalatraputra vittaptan grihan pashu parichadan navikshyamanasthavrita sarve prana paripsavaha. When the great leaders of the demons, who were being killed one after another, saw the unprecedented exertion of the demigods in fighting, they began to flee, scattering themselves in all directions. Simply to protect their lives, they hastily fled from their homes, wives, children, animals, and household paraphernalia. Paying no heed to all these, the demons simply fled. Vyalumpan Rajasibiram Amarajaya Kankshi Naha Indrastu Raja Mahishim Mataram Mamachagrahit. The victorious demigods plundered the palace of Hiranyakashipu, the king of the demons, and destroyed everything within it. Then Indra, king of heaven, arrested my mother, the queen. Niyamanam Bhayodvignan Rudatim Kurarim iva Yadrichaya Gatastatra Devashir Dadrishe Pati. As she was being led away, crying in fear like a kukuri captured by a vulture, the great sage Narada, who at that time had no engagement, appeared on the scene and saw her in that condition. Prahanainam surapate nitum arhasi anagasam muncha mahabhaga satim para parigraham. Narad Muni said, O Indra, king of the demigods, this woman is certainly sinless. You should not drag her off in this merciless way. O greatly fortunate one, this chaste woman is the wife of another. You must immediately release her. Shri Indra uvacha astesya jatare viryam avishasyam suradvishaha asyatam yavat prasavam moksherartha padavim gataha. King Indra said, in the womb of this woman, the wife of the demon Hiranyakashipu is the seed of that great demon. Therefore, let her remain in our custody until her child is delivered, and then we shall release her. Purport. Indra, the king of heaven, decided to arrest Prahlad Maharaj's mother because he thought that another demon, another Hiranyakashipu, was within her womb. The best course, he thought, was to kill the child when the child was born, and then the woman could be released. Shri Narada Uvacha Ayam Nishkilbisa Sakshan Mahabhagavato Mahan Tvayana Prapsyate Samsthan Ananta Nucharo Bali. Narad Muni replied, the child within this woman's womb is faultless and sinless. Indeed, he is a great devotee, a powerful servant of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Therefore, you will not be able to kill him. Purport. There have been many instances in which demons or non-devotees have attempted to kill a devotee, but they have never been able to destroy a great devotee of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The Lord promises in the Bhagavad Gita 9:31, Kaunteya pratijana nihi na me bhakta pranashyati. This is a declaration by the Supreme Personality of Godhead that his devotee cannot be killed by demons. Prahlad Maharaj is a vivid example of the truth of this promise. Narad Muni told the king of heaven, it would be impossible for you to kill the child, even though you are the demigods. Even though you are demigods, and certainly it would be impossible for others. Text 11. Iti yuktastam vihayendro devarshir manayan vachaha anantapriya bhaktainam parikramya divam yayau. When the great Saint Narad Muni had thus spoken, King Indra, being respectful to Narada's words, immediately released my mother. Because of my being a devotee of the Lord, all the demigods circumambulated her. Then they returned to their celestial kingdom. Purport. Although King Indra and the other demigods are exalted personalities, they were so obedient to Narad Muni that King Indra immediately accepted Narad Muni's words concerning Prahlad Maharaj. This is called understanding by the Parampara system. Indra and the demigods did not know that a great devotee was in the womb of Kayadhu, the wife of Hiranyakashipu, but they accepted the authoritative statements of Narad Muni and immediately offered their respects to the devotee by circumambulating the woman in whose womb he was living. To understand God and the devotee by the Parampara system is the process of knowledge. There is no need to speculate about God and his devotee. One should accept the statements of a bona fide devotee and thus try to understand. Tato me mataram rishihi samaniya nijashrame ashva seho syatam vatse yavate bhartur agamaha. Prahlad Maharaj continued. The great Saint Narad Muni brought my mother to his ashrama and assured her of all protection, saying, "My dear child, please remain at my ashrama until the arrival of your husband." Tatheti avatsi devarshir antike shakuto bhaya yavad daitya partir ghorat tapaso na nyavartata. After accepting the instructions of Devarshi Narada, my mother stayed in his care without fear from any direction, as long as my father, the king of the Daityas, had not become free from his severe austerities. Rishim paryacharat tatra bhaktya paramaya sati antarvatni swagarbhasya kshemya Kshema yecha prasuttaye. My mother, being pregnant, desired the safety of her embryo and desired to give birth after her husband's arrival. Thus she stayed at Narad Muni's ashram, where she rendered service unto Narad Muni with great devotion. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. It is stated in the Srimad Bhagavatam 9:19-17, Matra swashra duhitrava naivi viktasano bhaved. Balavan Indriya Gramo Vidvamsam Apikarshati. One should not remain in a secluded place with a woman, even one's mother, sister, or daughter. Nonetheless, although one is strictly prohibited from staying with a woman in a secluded place, Narad Muni gave shelter to Prahlad Maharaj's younger mother, who rendered service to him with great devotion and faith. Does this mean that Narad Muni transgressed the Vedic injunctions? Certainly he did not. Such injunctions are intended for mundane creatures, but Narad Muni is transcendental to mundane categories. Narad Muni is a great saint and is transcendently situated. Therefore, although he was a young man, he could give shelter to a young woman and accept her service. Haridas Thakur also spoke with a young woman, a prostitute, in the dead of night, but the woman could not deviate his mind. Instead, she became a Vaishnavi, a pure devotee, by the benediction of Haridas Thakur. Ordinary persons, however, should not imitate such highly elevated devotees. Ordinary persons must strictly observe the rules and regulations by staying aloof from the association of women. No one should imitate Narad Muni or Haridas Thakur. It is said, Vaishnavera Kriya Mudra Vignye na Bujjaya. Even if a man is very advanced in learning, he cannot understand the behavior of a Vaishnava. Anyone can take shelter of a pure Vaishnava without fear. Therefore, in the previous verse, it has been distinctly said, Devarshir Antike Shakuto Bhaya. Kayadhu, the mother of Prahlad Maharaj, stayed under the protection of Narad Muni without fear from any direction. Similarly, Narad Muni, in his transcendental position, stayed with the young woman without any fear of deviation. Narad Muni, Haridas Thakur, and similar acharyas, especially empowered to broadcast the glories of the Lord, cannot be brought down to the material platform. Therefore, one is strictly forbidden to think that the acharya is an ordinary human being. Guru Su Nara Matihi. Rishihi karunikastasya pradad ubhayam ishvaraha dharmasya tattvam vijnanam cha mam api udishya nirmalam. Translation. Narad Muni delivered his instructions both to me, who was within the womb, and to my mother, who was engaged in rendering him service. Because he is naturally extremely kind to fallen souls, being in a transcendental position, he gave instructions on religion and transcendental knowledge. These instructions were free from all material contamination. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Here it is said, Dharmasya Tattvam Jnanam Cha Nirmalam. The word Nirmalam refers to spotless dharma, spotless religion, or in other words, Bhagavad Dharma. Ordinary ritualistic activities constitute contaminated religion, by which one benefits by developing material wealth and prosperity. But uncontaminated pure religion consists of understanding one's relationship with God and acting accordingly, thus fulfilling the highest mission of life and returning home back to God. Prahlad Maharaj advised that one elevate himself to the standard of Bhagavad Dharma from the very beginning of life. Komara acharet pragnyo dharman bhagavataniha. The Lord himself also speaks of pure uncontaminated religion when he says, Sarva dharman parityajya mamekam sharanam vaja. Abandon all varieties of religion and just surrender unto me. Bhagavad Gita 1866. One must understand one's relationship with God and then act accordingly. This is Bhagavata Dharma. Bhagavata Dharma means Bhakti Yoga. Vasudeve Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Prayojitaha Janayatya Suvairagyam Jnanam Cha Yadahitukam. By rendering devotional service under the personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, one immediately acquires causeless knowledge and detachment from the world. Bhagavatam, 1st Canto, 2nd chapter, 7th verse. To be situated on the platform of pure religion, one should perform Bhakti Yoga in relationship with Krishna, Vasudeva. Om Tat Sat. So I'll just stop here and take a few reflections or questions.
Hare Krishna, Mataji. I
Yes.
like the idea when Prahlad Maharaj was saying that when they were taking his mother, and Narad Muni came and told them that don't take it because there is a devotee inside, without any proof, they just listen. And the way it was explained that yes, that is how anybody who is a pure devotee following the parampara system should be listened to and should just take it his word as the word of Krishna. I really like that.
Yeah, I agree with you. And actually it's mentioned in several places that, even like in the pastime of the churning of the milk ocean, the difference between the demigods and demons, like even though they are engaged in similar activities, so to speak, on the external front, like Indra, he's also trying to protect his, kingdom. So he wants to destroy the demon child who's born, who's probably going to be in the same, manner as Hiranyakashipu. He assumes that he will also be a demon. So he wants to protect his kingdom. So he's doing nothing wrong. But when the minute the difference between a demigod and demon is that demigods always are obedient to Vasudeva and his devotees, whereas demons are always rebellious. And so that is the reason it is very interesting how they immediately gave up their anger, fear, anxiety, enviousness towards that child, in one sense, that they wanted to kill him the minute they came to know that he's an advanced devotee. Yeah, I love that too. Thank you, Mataji. Gandharvika Radha Mataji?
I was just thinking deeply about that point, how Prabhupada makes in the purport that Narada Muni, like he is young and that lady is also young, but there was no fall down.
Yeah.
But just the element of devotion to the Supreme Lord is there. Otherwise, anything, even if we have good intentions, then wrong things happen, right? Like we see in the case of Vishwamitra, right?
Yeah.
It's like so many years and years of practice but it sounds like so odd. Like, do you fall down just by hearing a sound? It seems like it's a total failure right from the beginning. But here, the example of that Prabhupada saying about Haridas Thakur and Narada Muni, it's so pleasing to the heart. Like, even if you do a little service, you're protected from being by falling down into like worse hells. And so I was thinking about that, and also how it's Prabhupada also wants others that, like we read in the previous set of verses, right? One should not be together with mother, sister. So unless we attain that pure stage, like Narada and everybody, we have to be careful. But once we get that level of purity, then we can serve everybody. So how they draw the line and give us proper instructions to be careful until that stage is reached. So I was just noticing about that.
Yeah, that's a very deep purport. I also actually noticed that how Prabhupada, he touches upon that very sensitive point, that how, he was a young man and she was a young lady. And still, because he is, a pure devotee, his Bhakti Yoga is so powerful. It's showing that, the practice of Bhakti Yoga, even in the pastime of Haridas Thakur, that it automatically raises one to the point of complete knowledge and detachment, as Bhagavatam itself, says in the second chapter of the first canto, and how that immediately being in knowledge and detachment empowers one, to not be affected by the petty, actions through the modes. But any other place where we see a fall down, it means that pure devotional service is not being tasted by that devotee yet. That is why they are attracted to something which is lower. They have not yet tasted pure devotional service. And it is just the mercy of a devotee that we can taste it, even though it seems very simple for the simple people or externally to be doing devotional service, or it's complicated for the complex people. But it is possible only through the handheld guidance of a pure devotee, that a person can be raised to that experience of pure devotion service. And once they experience that, then there is no risk of fall down. That's what I understood from that, and that is really amazing.
Thank you, that's nice. Yes.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Malini typed something in the chat.
Yeah,
Maybe.
she says that we have to follow in the footsteps instead of imitating. Yeah, I like that too. Yeah. And Prabhupada actually gives the similar example when how Lord Shiva, when he takes the poison in the churning of the milk ocean, or how when Jesus Christ has been chastised, that he's taking the sins. But all these great personalities, we cannot imitate them because they are so exalted. Only they can understand how they are able to do that. But we have to follow them in their attitude of executing the devotional service. That is what their example should be for us, their attitude of humility and determination and service to the Supreme Lord and his devotees. That attitude is what we should try to follow. Thank you so much, Malini. That is a wonderful point.
Sorry, I'm back. I have one more point I wanted to mention was last time actually when Vaisheshika Prabhu was I think taking a class or something, and this point of these prayers came, that what qualification do we have to recite any prayers or recite any pastimes that Prahlad Maharaj has described. But he mentioned one important point, that when you recite the prayers done by others, then you try to attain the mercy of that devotee. And because let's say if you wrote a book, the most pleasing thing for an author is somebody reads their book. So similarly, if you recite prayers of the great saints and great devotees, they become very happy and they give us their blessings. And by their blessings, we get some qualification to really offer something to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So I was just remembering how following in the footsteps versus imitating also applies there to get the mercy of the Supreme Lord. So,
Wow. Yeah. Beautiful. Thank you so much. Yeah. So I guess we are at 8:07. If we have any other comments or questions at this point, or thank you so much to those who were able to join online on Zoom and on other channels. We are very grateful for your association, and we hope we could serve you through this wonderful pastime and reading of Prahlad Maharaj and his glories.
Thank you, Mataji, for the wonderful reading.
Thank you. So I guess we can stop here. Yes. I don't see anyone.
Special thanks to Nimai.
Nitai.
Thank you, Nimai. And
You mean Nitai?
sorry, Nitai. Thank you, Nitai. Nitai.
He's right here.
Yeah, thank you, Nitai.
Thank you.
Nicely, very nicely. I am in love with the pronunciation of your Sanskrit shloka.
Thank you.
Exactly. Yes. Good job. Keep it up, Nitai.
Thank you, Mataji.
Thank you, Mataji.
Thank you.
Rasesvari Shri Mataji ki jai.
Vancha kalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubheva pitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha.
Thank
Jai
you,
Shri
Venakita,
Prabhupada.
for doing this transmission.
Thank you, Mataji. Thank you for the service. Thank you. Hare Krishna, dear devotee.